I think I was starting to sympathise with your girlfriend here, Jamie, because it's my birthday and you're ranting at me about Marvel. I'm on the verge of tears, frankly.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
Oh, we're here, Jamie.
We are here, Sam, and it's a very special Sam Russo birthday episode.
Oh, shucks.
So, happy birthday, Sam.
Thanks, Jamie. What a happy, happy day I'm having.
How's your birthday been so far?
Absolutely brilliant. Couldn't ask for a better birthday. I get to go to Camp Crystal Lake for a surprise party in a cabin in one of my favorite horror franchises. So I'm very excited to push my birthday joy to the limits.
Absolutely. You could take a little bad news cruise all the way to Crystal Lake.
Yeah, we get to talk about one of the worst doctors in horror history. We get to talk about the introduction of telekinesis to the Friday the 13th universe. We get to talk about Jason going fully rotten. It doesn't get any better than this, does it, Jamie? What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that.
We're pretty close to the 35th anniversary of this movie as well. Or maybe it's past. I don't know, 1988. Whatever. So, a timely little episode, a timely little dip of our toe into the murky waters of Camp Crystal Lake.
Absolutely.
Or just Crystal Lake, as it's known.
Yeah, the camp isn't there anymore, is it?
No.
So, obviously, you picked this because it's your birthday.
Yeah.
And this is a film that you wanted to represent Sam Russo. Can you talk to me a little bit about why this is your birthday pick?
It's my birthday pick for a million reasons. I love this film. It features a birthday. It's a horror movie. It's a movie that, wrongly or rightly, a big part of me thinks there's chunks of it that you will like. It's an Empire pick. It's John Carl Buechler. It's a lot of things that Jamie likes. And,
it's true.
No horror fans hate Friday the 13th, I don't think. There's something in there for everyone. And, the original working title of this movie was Birthday Bash. So, a pretty on-the-nose little reference there, but why the hell not? It's an old VHS fave of mine. It's a much maligned movie that I would like to ring the gong for. And I don't think it gets the credibility that it deserves. I don't think it's fanned on enough.
Well, that's interesting. I think as part of the Friday the 13th canon, it's fanned on pretty intensely. So with me, I would always get this one mixed up with number 5 because they both have new in the title.
Yeah, okay. Understandable.
And they both have vaguely Dream Warriors vibes.
Yeah, and they both failed to deliver on their titles. There's nothing to do with anything like the New Blood. Well, what does that mean? Nothing.
Yeah. What does that mean?
I think the intention was that the franchise would continue with Tina as a protagonist moving forward, and the New Blood would be Tina, essentially.
Like, Tina is the new Tommy.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah. Well, that didn't happen, did it?
Didn't even remotely happen. It barely even happens in this movie, let alone another one.
I mean, I think they both have Dream Warriors-esque vibes. I think if you mashed 5 and this one together, you would basically have Dream Warriors.
Do you like 5?
Yeah, but no.
I mean, that's the answer to every Friday the 13th movie, right?
I love 1.
Yeah.
I love 2. I love X.
Oh, who doesn't love X? Actually, I guess a lot of people hate X.
Well, anyone that hates Jason X needs to get off their fucking high horse.
Yeah.
And into a bin.
Get in the bin, Jason X haters. And that's how
Get
I
out
feel...
of my dreams and into my bin.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about haters of the New Blood. I think it's more...
Well, I'll see you in the bin later. Then.
Yeah, okay. Brilliant. Meet me in the bin. Listen, I just think it's a great little movie, and I got a lot of bullshit to say about it. And it's my birthday, so fuck everyone else.
Fergus, do you want to give us a little synopsis?
Yeah, sure. It's really simple, surprisingly enough. Jason is sunk to the bottom of Crystal Lake by Tommy Jarvis in the previous movie, in Friday the 13th, Part 6. And
Spoilers alert.
what?
Spoilers ahoy.
Oh, have I?
Spoilers. Spoilers ahoy.
we,
That's fine.
are we doing a spoiler-free Snops?
No,
I just spoiled an entire movie.
you spoiled 2 movies.
Two movies. So at the end of 6, Tommy Jarvis sinks Jason in Crystal Lake, and you'd have to be out of your tree to think he's not coming back. So the good news is he's back. There's a lakeside house by Crystal Lake where a horrible tragedy occurs. A young girl called Tina Lincoln, accidentally, on purpose, murders her abusive father by collapsing a pier with her mind that he's standing on and sinking him to the bottom of Crystal Lake, crushed by all the debris. She grows up to be adult Tina, who is taken back to Crystal Lake by her insane and useless doctor, Dr. Cruz, who has this crazy plan that he's going to ignite her telepathic powers for his own career gains. And that doesn't go according to plan. She ends up resurrecting Jason Voorhees from the lake somehow, while a guy called Mark is having a surprise birthday party. And Jason crashes the party, to say the least. Hijinks ensue. Stuff blows up. A good time's had by all. Did I miss anything there, Jamie?
A good time's had by some.
Everyone but Jamie.
I don't think that's true. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that happens in this movie. I think just overall it doesn't really hang together. But we'll get into that.
Where's there a rule that says a movie has to hang together? Where does it say anywhere? A movie has to work from start to finish. There's
yeah, true.
On paper, this is a Jamie banger, but I totally understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea. So why don't we talk a little bit about how you came across this movie? I'm guessing it's like a lot of people, kind of murky memories of Friday movies blurring into one. But do you remember specifically when you saw this for the first time or early time?
No, but I do remember maybe when I was in my early 20s marathoning all of the Friday the 13th films. I think maybe it would have been... Did they re-released a box set around the time that the remake came out, 2009, 2010 time?
Yeah, the ones that all went straight to Amazon and have the absolutely abysmal artwork.
Yeah. So I think it would have been around then maybe that I really remember seeing it. And I think in amongst a marathon, if you do it over a few days, this film is a real highlight. I think if you take it on its own, it sort of doesn't necessarily deliver, I think. And I think part of that is we'll talk about this in depth when we get into it, but part of it is the lack of gore.
Yeah.
The lack of like interesting kills. I mean, the kills are interesting, but the fact that the film isn't punctuated by this sort of level of interesting or exciting kills because it's really muted by intense censorship.
Yeah, no one's going to argue with you there. It's the biggest criticism of the movie, I think, is the vicious censorship and the horribly biased censorship of this movie. The MPAA notoriously had it out for the Friday the 13th franchise and took this movie to the chopping block no less than 9 times. They kept submitting it for approval because they obviously wanted an R rating instead of an X rating, and they kept getting it batted back with more and more and more edits. And unfortunately, it cuts all of the joy out of the deaths. There are some fantastic death scenes in this movie that aren't fully realized because they're chopped to bits. But again, we can talk about that a little bit more later. I think everyone is on your side there, Jamie. Nobody likes the fact that it's so viciously censored. There is one kill in this movie that I want to talk to you about later on that people think is better for the censorship. But let's maybe take
I'm interested to hear about that.
Yeah, let's chill our boots for a minute and come back to that, shall we?
Sure. Well, why don't we take a break and then we'll come back.
Let's do that.
Get into it proper.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Listen, Jamie, if there's one thing we can both agree on, it's that Red Scare looks after you. That's their main deal. They're always there for you. They've always got your back.
Yeah.
www.redscare.net when you need some love.
No matter what position you're in, they will help you. If you're feeling angry, they've got some angry shit for you. If you're feeling melancholic, they've got some sad shit. If you're feeling like you want to break into a car, there's Max Intruder. Like, it's all there. It's all there for you. If you feel like you want to drown yourself, you can jump into Lake Michigan with a sincere engineer. Like, Have a great time.
Very good.
All the time.
That's probably Red Scare's real motto, right? Have a good time all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I stole that from Spinal Tap, but Red Scare can have it.
They can have it from you, then it's not stealing. Have a good time all the time. RedScareIndustries.net. Oh boy, Jamie, I'm back. Are you with me?
I am back. Yes.
You were going to say back like a vertebrae, weren't you?
Yes, I was. How could you tell? You just read it in my face.
You're smiling. That's how I knew. So what did you think about the recap that opens this movie? Voiced by Walt Gorney, Crazy Ralph, R.I.P. A lot of people think it's the best recap of the series. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I love a recap.
Me too.
I was kind of worried because I've not watched any of the Friday the 13th films for quite a while. I think I did the Tommy Jarvis trilogy maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was the most recent I'd engaged with any of the Friday the 13th movies, apart from playing the game with you.
Hell yes.
And so, yeah, I think it's a great recap. It's obviously very Tommy Jarvis heavy because we're coming straight off the back of that. Obviously, there's not an awful lot of stuff from 5 in there because why would there be?
Yeah, pointless.
But I love it. I think all films, all like deep sequel films should have a recap.
Yeah, I agree. If you're 7 movies into a to a film universe, you need to have your memory jogged because people couldn't watch these whenever the hell they wanted. They could have waited, with Friday the 13th, up to 8 months for the next movie. So they could have been like, you could quite easily forget what happened in a summer full of slasher movies,
Absolutely. I think like Marvel films should have recaps because there's a billion fucking Marvel movies and you have to watch all of them to know what's going on, plus all the fucking Disney Plus TV shit.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it. So if I was to just pick up whatever the next fucking dumb dick Avengers movie is or whatever, I would have no idea who anyone is or what.
Well, it's like, I do it because I've got nothing fucking better to do than watch a million movies and TV shows and whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if you were, I don't know, say a horror fan that came to Doctor Strange 2 because Sam Raimi's directing it.
Yeah.
There's a Bruce Campbell cameo. Like, it's incomprehensible nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just be like, here's everything you need to know about the world before you watch Doctor Strange. Here's a 3-minute recap of everything that'll get you to this point. Why don't they do that?
Because they want you to go out and buy £4,000 worth of graphic novels and watch a million movies. That's why. And they assume you're 14.
The big issue with Marvel is that they don't push the graphic novels at all.
Right.
Like, they don't care if you're reading graphic novels. They only want you to engage with Marvel visual media, movies and TV shows. Like, they don't even, like, when they directly adapt a storyline from a graphic novel, they don't be like, hey, this is from Secret Wars or whatever. Go and buy that from your local Forbidden Planet or whatever. Like, they don't do that.
Yeah.
Which is bonkers because Disney and Marvel own Marvel Comics. That's where they're stealing all of these great ideas from writers and not paying them. So, like,
I think I'm starting to sympathize with your girlfriend here, Jamie, because it's my birthday and you're ranting at me about Marvel. I'm on the verge of tears, frankly.
I'm sorry, Sam. My point is, all franchises should include a previously on Friday the 13th.
Oh, God, I even love a previously on in bad telly. Isn't it great? Like, last week
tells
on
you everything
Baywatch.
you need to know. Tells you everything you need to know about what's going to happen in that episode.
Yeah.
And it tells you nothing about anything else. Like, it's fine. Like, when you watch Lost, the previously on is the guy's looking for Walt. We found the hatch. And then it's like, oh, where's Walt? Where's the hatch? That's the whole show. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. It really preheats the oven. It gets you in the mood. And the fact that this one's voiced by Walt Gorney and it just does an incredible job. I always love in the earlier installments in the Friday franchise when the recap is a campfire scene or something similar. And I mean, the best thing about this recap for me, A, is Walt Gorney, but B, is the fact that there's footage in this that isn't actually in the movies. Some of the stuff from Jason Lives is from teaser trailers and the exploding tombstone, stuff like that, which is great. I think that's a real attention to detail that maybe doesn't carry on beyond the first minute of the film. But it's a really cool way to go into a horror movie like this because it sets the tone, I think. You're in pretty retro horror territory. I mean, we got to remember this is 88, which is a double-edged sword for me because it feels ancient at this point, but it's also the year that like a bunch of incredible horror movies came out, which really makes this look like trash.
Well, one of my big criticisms is it's so fucking dark.
Yeah, it's dim.
Like, I started watching this on, like, I don't know, maybe it was like 3 p.m.
Yeah.
on Friday, and I was like, I've got to wait till it's dark because I cannot see a single thing that's happening.
Yeah, it's real
Like, you
dark.
introduce a slight bit of daylight glare onto your TV, and you literally could not engage with the film
Lose
at
the
all.
entire movie.
Yeah.
I like that, and I absolutely love the look of this film, and I think even it's very autumnal to me. It's got lots of very flat beige brown stuff happening in the daytime with like flashes of sunlight, and everything at night is really dark and kind of slimy and very wet looking, and I think that adds a lot of depth to a lot of the nighttime scenes. Every kill in this movie happens under the cover of night, and I think
True.
that makes it all the more sinister.
I mean, I do like a film that forces you to watch it at a certain time.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wish the film was better for it.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's a great Friday night popcorn movie for me. So, watching it in daytime, I have watched it in the daytime several times, once this week, because for me, it's an anytime, all the time movie. But I think to really set the scene, you need to light a couple of candles, do it at night, crack a beer. It's the PBR of horror movies.
This is your new thing, it's the blank of horror movies.
Yeah, it is. I really think it is. What about, I mean, listen, I remember vividly renting this on VHS because I'd seen it so many times on the shelves and never been allowed to rent it, obviously, because it's fucking probably 1990 at this point. And I just remember thinking the cover just looked amazing. It looked so different to all the other Friday movies somehow. It took the artwork to a whole new level. I thought it was really interesting. For some reason, I thought Jason's face was the moon for the longest time.
I think Jason's face looks like a mad ball. Do you remember Mad Balls?
Yeah. I mean, on the cover, it looks like the moon. It literally, I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but when I was a kid and I'd never seen Jason and all I knew of Friday the 13th was this cover, I thought, oh, wow, a knife and a woman with a sparkly eye and the moon. What could this movie be about? It's not about...
Oh, you mean The Mask?
Yeah,
I see.
yeah, sorry, yeah, the Mask.
I mean, it looks kind of moon-esque, I guess.
Yeah, just, you're a dumb kid. So, like, it looks like...
Well,
and you don't know what
speak
Jason
yourself.
is. It's the moon. So I had no idea what the movie was going to be about. When I finally got to the point where I could watch it, I don't know, had one of the funnest nights of my life and relived that several times and relived it this week for my birthday. So did anything leap out at you early on in this movie?
Well, the first thing that leaps out to me is it's Bernie, and he's alive. I love that. I love Bernie.
Bernie with
I
his
love
eyes
Terry
open.
Kaiser. Yeah. And like, I've not seen Terry Kaiser in an awful lot of films. I've seen him in Weekend at Bernie's, where he's alive for a bit and then he isn't.
Yeah.
I've seen him in Weekend at Bernie's 2, where he's dead but reanimated by a voodoo curse that makes him only move around when there's music playing.
He's a real zombie. He's a very traditional zombie in that sense, right?
It's true, yeah. And he just plays a good smarmy dickhead.
Yeah.
I quite like that you don't really know that he's a dickhead straight away. You sort of think that he's an antagonistic doctor.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear from early doors that he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And way more interested in the telekinesis than the making her better.
Which is kind of like no shit. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're if you're a psychotherapist, you find out one of your patients can move shit with her mind, her childhood trauma becomes, somewhat secondary to the fact that she could be a fucking government weapon. Like,
yeah.
You're starting to see dollar signs. Yeah, I think he's introduced as a tough love mental health professional, and then he becomes one of the best villains apart from Jason in all the Friday movies, I think.
I mean, he doesn't do an awful lot of very good villain stuff. Like,
ooh, I don't know. He is a shitty guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, he uses Tina's mum as a human
shield. It's my favorite bit in the whole movie. He hides evidence of murders. He convinces Tina that she's more insane than she is constantly. He puts her in massive psychological and physical danger for his own gains. He's great.
He's obviously a shithead.
Yeah.
But I think maybe because he's Terry Kaiser and he's Bernie, you just sort of look at him and feel warm to him.
Yeah. For me, as much as he is Weekend at Bernie's, he's a lot of TV teachers. He's a lot of like high school teachers who, aren't afraid to tell you how it is. And I think he brings a bit of all of those roles into this movie. And like you say, it's kind of hard to separate the previous roles. I mean, you want to talk about typecast? Fucking Weekend at Bernie. It's like being Ernest. You might as well be like Ernest in a fucking Halloween movie. Like
That would be amazing,
that
though.
would be great.
Fucking the Ernest horror movie that exists.
Yeah, the Halloween one.
Ernest Scared Stupid. I mean, is amazing. Put Ernest in a film, in a Jason movie. Fuck yes.
Put him in the next Predator as Thomas Jane's twin brother.
Yeah,
It could work.
Ernest versus Predator. That would be amazing. I mean, it's so sad to me that Ernest is dead.
Yeah.
What's his actual
Don't
name?
know, can't remember.
Oh,
That's how bad it gets for these actors. They just become Ernest.
Well, I mean, he's Ernest.
Terry Crews is Bernie.
Jim Varney.
Kaiser
That's his
is-
name.
Jim Varney. I think
Terry Crews as Bernie would be
that
pretty
would be
fucking
pretty special.
fun. You would believe it when he wants to kill off those yuppies.
Yeah, I could do Terry Crews as anyone in this movie. I think you replace anyone in this movie with Terry Crews, you're in a good spot.
I feel like Terry Crews versus Kane Hodder becomes a pretty different vibe, though.
You mean if Terry Crews
Because
was Jason?
No, I think if Jason fights a gigantic buff bodybuilder man,
Yeah.
like maybe they would win.
I'd like to see a weird time travel movie where Jason has to fight another version of himself at some point. I think that would be unbearably dumb. And you could get Terry Crews to play Jason X.
I do like that idea. I always like time travel.
Yeah.
There's a great movie called Time Crimes. I won't say anything else about it because I might spoil
Okay.
it, but it's good. It's good.
Here's a question for you.
Would recommend it.
Is time travel as a movie, is time travel a subgenre of science fiction? Is it its own thing, or are all time travel movies sci-fi movies? So is Back to the Future a sci-fi movie?
I mean, that's a tough question because like The Time Traveler's Wife, is that a sci-fi movie or is that a mawkish romantic nonsense?
I think time travel is kind of its own genre. I'm asking for Tim Brown,
Yeah.
by the way. We've been talking about time travel. Tim Brown from the fantastic Red Scare band Elway. Check him out. One of his favorite sci-fi movies of all time is Back to the Future. And it just got me thinking, Back to the Future is a sci-fi movie, but more than that, it's a time travel movie. So does it have its own genre?
I think maybe time travel is its own genre. I think because you could have a time travel movie that isn't sci-fi, right?
Yes.
It could be fantasy.
Yeah.
It could be there's like a
Just portals.
weird like Goodnight Sweetheart isn't a sci-fi show.
Oh, it's a great show. Nor is Midnight in Paris.
I haven't seen Midnight in Paris.
Oh, it's lovely.
I watched a clip of it the other day. I think on Netflix or something. Do you know like the little clip that it shows you?
As a little ill Bill who's couchbound right now, you should slap that fucker on for a Sunday afternoon hoot. You'll have a great time.
Yeah.
So we've got Terry Kaiser. I mean, I would say what more do you need, but it's clear to me that you need convincing further. So what do you think?
I just my issue isn't any of the performances or the characters, although none of them act like human beings, which is, whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody at the party is just like there was a moment where I was watching it with Kaz and she turned to me and she was like, "Why is everybody having sex? Is it like, oh, it's 11 p.m. time for us all to go and have sex?"
There's a great scene where 3 couples are all having sex at the same time. And listen, if you're asking that question,
You're in the wrong place.
yes.
You're in the wrong movie.
Yes. The 3 couples are fucking because they've gone for a surprise birthday party in the woods in their teens and they have loads of weed. Like, what more do you fucking need? They're there to smoke weed and fuck.
Yeah.
To pair
I
up
mean,
and bang.
It's just weird, isn't it? That it's like, oh, it's time for us all to go and bang.
I don't
But like
know,
that's absolutely horror movie trope, which
But it's based
is-
in reality. Like, when you're a teenager and the party's over and everyone pairs up, like, you don't think of it this way because you don't have this, omnipotent camera lens to go through the fucking house. But everyone's fucking. Like, and if you're not, you're doing something that's almost like the polar opposite of fucking. Like, sitting in the living room opening all the birthday presents on your own. Like, I think it's fucking accurate, bud.
He's my favorite character, by the way, the sci-fi nerd guy.
Yeah, I think we got a lot to talk about in terms of the party crew, the kids, if you will. Interesting that he's your favorite.
Sure. I mean, I just think it's funny that he's like, I've been rejected by every top level sci-fi magazine.
He can handle
And in the
rejection.
deleted scenes, he says that again.
Yeah.
Like that's his like fucking go-to catchphrase. I wonder if like they were only going to use one of them.
Yeah.
And it was just a case of which one that they use. At one point he's talking about a sci-fi film, and I can't gauge whether he's talking about a real sci-fi film that exists in the world of Friday the 13th, or if he's trying to pass off something that he's written as like a real sci-fi film. And he was like, I went with Ben. And Ben was like, I don't remember that. And he's like, oh, maybe it was someone else. But
yeah, I read it as the former. I think it's all like completely ridiculous, made up bullshit. But I have two amazing questions for you on that front. First of all, he devises a sci-fi movie during Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, called Star Mummy.
Yeah,
would you
yeah, he
watch
does.
Star Mummy? Because it sounds rad to me.
I mean, I'd watch any movie ever.
But Star
So-
Mummy, come on, King Tut rises from his moon tomb, and that's all we get. But and I've added
Like-
moon. He doesn't say it's on the moon.
Well, it must be in space, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not the plot of Jason X, though, right?
No, that's a very good point. If Jason X is King Tut,
Yeah, I mean, Jason X is ultimately mummified, right?
he's entombed in space.
Yeah.
Woof, that's some serious foreshadowing there. Wow, Eddie
I-
McCarlo predicted Jason X.
I think Jason looks a bit mummy-esque in this movie specifically as well.
He does. We need to talk for 1,000 hours about Jason in this movie. So you think the kids are all like not acting like humans, completely dumb, and doing things that are totally unnatural?
As the nerdiest girl at the party, why do you fancy the weed guy?
It seems to me like everyone kind of inexplicably fancies him.
Only her and her little mate, who is, I think, meant to be nerdy, but is obviously very beautiful.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the main problem I have with the whole like teen cast is the transformation scene where she gets told you could use a little touch-up work, and she's like, fuck you, and then she goes off and immediately has like an hour-long makeup session, looks in the mirror and goes, need a little touch-up work my ass. That's exactly what you just did. Like, you did exactly what she told you to.
I was sort of, and I might cut this out, but I was sort of expecting like, oh, she's going to be beautiful, but she just looks the same.
She does look the same. So we're talking about the character of Maddie Paulson, Madeline, who, for my money, sucks. I think she's really boring. But out of the whole movie, she has the best scream. She screams like an absolute maniac in that tool shed. And I think that adds a lot to her death. Again, her death, super graphic, completely cut out.
I would like her more because I think she looks like Heather Matarazzo from Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Sure.
And I would like it a lot more if it was that character from Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Yeah, she's sadly just junk. Eddie McCarlo, I think, is pretty good. I think he's a memorable character. I was kind of sad not to see him like perfectly represented in the video game. He's kind of a Chandler Bing meets Crispin Glover guy.
Yeah. He's got that absolute Crispin Glover vibe that we're missing because Crispin Glover's not in this one.
That we're craving. Yeah, I mean, I want to go on record and
Yeah.
say that Crispin Glover is the best thing that happens in all of the Friday the 13th movies, in my opinion. His character is head and shoulders above the rest.
I think because Crispin Glover just has, even when he doesn't mean to, just has a weird, sinister energy.
Yeah.
Have you listened to Crispin Glover's record?
Bits. I haven't made it all the way through.
I used to listen to it all the fucking time. I love it. That rap song about wanking, no notes.
No notes. I mean, his performance as Jimmy, just transcendent. It's one of my favorite movie performances of all time. And yeah, we don't get him in this, which is a real shame. We don't really get an equivalent. We don't get anything that matches that charisma, that inventiveness, the creativity, the sort of wild side. And Eddie's fine. I mean, he's totally forgettable in a lot of ways, but he's there and he serves a purpose. His character is completely and fundamentally changed by one word in this movie. Can you guess the word?
No, go on.
So when he's rejected by Melissa, he's totally manipulated by Melissa. He's like used and humiliated by her. He totally takes it on the chin, right? He does the very adult, mature thing and says, rejection. I've been rejected by some of the finest sci-fi magazines in the country, and leaves the room. But then he goes downstairs and he does call her a cunt, which is...
Of course. Yeah, that is a lot, isn't
Without
it?
that, he's a good guy. And then they had to throw that in there. It's a real shame.
It's so weird that like you can't show a sleeping bag being smashed against the tree.
Yeah.
but you can show a guy calling a woman a cunt.
Yeah, and like you can also show the gaping face wound of whoever the preppy stock market guy is, like fully ripped open, really graphic, but you can't show how he got it. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's a nonsense.
Can we talk about Tina?
Yes, please. Let's talk about sweet little Tina. La Park Lincoln.
So before we talk about Tina, this is related. How do you feel about Tommy Jarvis?
Obviously, I love Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis, and the rest of the Tommy Jarvises are residing with myself in the bin.
Like, I like Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah, you're a Jarvis trilogy head.
I mean, I it's hard to be a Jarvis trilogy head when number 5 is number 5.
Oh my God, that film is so utterly shite.
It doesn't make any sense, especially when there's more films around it. Like, we set up Tommy to become Jason.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, he doesn't. Oh, it's stupid. Number 5 can eat a bag of dicks.
Yeah, 5 is dumb. 6 is worse? Wait, which one's 6?
6 is Jason Lives.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a lot of great stuff in that, but also equal measure garbage.
Yeah, no, I think 6 is perfectly fine. But I do like Tommy Jarvis, and I like Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis in 6. What I don't like is 5. And obviously, everybody loves Corey Feldman. You can't not love Corey Feldman.
Yeah. I mean, it helps that it's one of the best Friday movies, in my opinion. It's not just Feldman. It's Glover. It's the story. It's the whole cast. Everything about it works really.
Yeah. So do you think Tina is a strong enough character to take the Tommy Jarvis mantle?
I think she's strong enough for this movie and this movie alone. If I'm honest, I don't think there was ever going to be a long-running... If I'm 100% honest, this movie could have been a 50-minute TV movie, and she would have been pretty fantastic. Stringing it out to an hour and a half is tricky for a number of reasons, but I don't think she has the staying power necessarily to do 3 movies. But neither did Tommy fucking Jarvis. Tommy Jarvis should have been a one-shot. She should have been a one-shot, and everyone would have been happy. That's just my opinion, obviously. But I really genuinely think she's great in this, and she brings a whole new dynamic and vibe to the movies that hasn't happened yet and hasn't happened since. So I think she's great, but I don't see it as something they should have. The problem with the Friday movies is milking something till it's completely dry. Whereas they had all these amazing ideas. You know, if you read the Camp Crystal Lake book, Crystal Lake Memories, or watch the documentary, so much stuff went in the bin that should have been used, and so many wild ideas that would have been amazing. So I think don't pummel her. Just let her do one movie and maybe let her die, and then move on to the next one.
Do you think it's interesting to bring in like because it's basically Jason versus Carrie?
That's what everyone billed it as. Yeah, that's what it was hyped as.
Yeah. Do you think that works? Do you think that that's a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's the most fun out of all the Friday movies. Is the end fight scene between Tina and Jason in this movie is the most fun I have out of all of the movies, because it's completely out of nowhere. There's no reason for any of this to be happening. You know, some of the most interesting parts of this movie stem from the telekinetic ability, and it's, you know, just random appearance in the universe. She resurrects Jason from, you know, the bottom of Crystal Lake, like Creature from the Black Lagoon style, and she turns him into the monster. You know, Jason becomes a monster from here on out, and it's because she resurrects him from the bottom of the lake where he's been rotting for 10 years. It's so cool. He comes out with all his flesh hanging off and his spine exposed and his jaw, you can see his teeth gnashing away. You know, she does that. She brings that to the franchise, and I think that's a great addition.
I really rate all of that. The thing that, I mean, I know that some people don't like the way that Jason looks in this. The thing that I don't buy is his hands. I don't buy his hands. They look like big, stupid gloves.
His hands change 3 times in the movie that I noticed. Which hands do you hate?
They look like big, burlappy gloves.
Oh, okay. So
I don't really believe them as the hands that would belong to a human person, even one that's been rotting.
Yeah, I mean,
for 10 years underwater.
When he's underwater, his hands are straight up Misfits stage gloves. They're like really kind of rubbery looking, and they have the bones on the outside. You can tell it's like a glove with bones on the outside. And then, like you said, they inexplicably become these weird oven gloves later on. Yeah. And then at the end, it's probably like some kind of fire retardant glove or something. The hands are maybe like Again, I'm going to say it, I just think it's the best Jason, the best costume, the best makeup effects. The kneecaps, like the oozing kneecaps where you can see the actual like patella coming away from the sinew.
Yeah.
So rad. The spine looks incredible, like glistening in the moonlight. Everything about the head I love. It's all like sinewy and rotten and gooey.
Yeah.
It's very, very
My
fun.
favorite bit is when she like tightens
Oh,
the band that's holding the mask on. That's the best bit of the entire movie for
it
me.
really, and when I was rewatching it again, I was shouting more at the TV screen. I just want that scene to catch all that gooey, pussy green. Like, I knew you'd love that. We both love goo, right?
Yeah.
Goo coming out of Jason's head as she squeezes the band of his mask. It's fucking sick.
So here are some issues that I have.
Go on.
Why is her dad still in the lake?
Oh my God. You want to talk about fucking up a perfectly good movie? It's the dumbest ending of anything I've ever seen. Her dad is still in the lake. Now, the problem here is, so my first question is, why isn't he rotten like Jason? The
Well,
answer
so
is, they just decided not to do that. They had him in full rot costume, and he looked
yeah.
incredible. And then they just fucking, they were like, no one will know who he is. Make him a normal guy again.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Any of the ending doesn't make any sense because, like, if he's in the lake, he's rotten. If he's in
Yeah.
the lake, why is he in the lake? They know that he's in there. Dig him out and put him in a grave.
Why
Like,
didn't
come
they
on.
find him when they,
Yeah,
get the frogmen in there? The kid killed her dad. Like, they didn't investigate it. Like, what?
literally. And then, like, if they did get the frogmen in there to recover the body, they would have also found Jason. So,
Exactly.
nonsense. It's all nonsense.
It's
It makes no
fantastic
sense.
nonsense.
The way that I explained it to Kaz, who was like, "What the fuck is going on? Why this doesn't make any sense?" I was like, presumably, dead dad is just floating on the top, so they don't need to go underneath to find him.
Right.
So they just like skim him off with a big net and they put him in the grave,
Okay.
like when your fish dies, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Or like a turd in a birthing pool.
exactly like that. And then when he comes back at the end, he's not being underwater. He's like a fucking Patronus or something. It's like,
Okay, so he's like transported under the water or something.
yeah,
Or maybe he burrows his way there from his grave.
I sort of think that more so than that, he isn't. He's a representation of the power of Tina's powers,
Yeah.
and all she wants is her dad to come and save her because, you know, what more can we possibly need than the abusive guy that we killed? But
The abusive drunk dad who was beating her mum. Let's make
Yeah.
him the hero for no reason.
so I think that's because what she wanted when she freed Jason ultimately was her dad to come out of the water.
Yeah.
She wanted the man in the lake to come out, but the
Exactly.
man was Jason, not her dad.
Yep. I
So-
totally agree with that read. I think that's the most astute and the most generous read you can possibly give that ending.
Yeah, I think that's it, but it doesn't make any sense. But I think it makes more sense for him to, if that's the idea, and I think we're maybe putting words in people's mouths that didn't have the thoughts beforehand.
Yeah.
But like, you've got to make stuff make sense,
Yeah.
and that's why he's not rotten.
Yeah, and that does make sense to me. And I do think to myself, would it be better if he was rotten to fuck like Jason? It would be a more fun horror movie, but in my opinion, it wouldn't round out the emotional curve that you need with a character like Tina. And it's a fun callback to the first one. You know, we have someone popping out of the water and dragging someone down that you don't expect, I don't think. Nobody was sitting there thinking, her dad's going to pop out and drag Jason down to the bottom of the lake. At least it's unpredictable. Yeah, a complete shitfire of an ending. But again, like, as long as you don't lean too hard into needing a fantastic ending in a Friday movie, you're fine, because none of these movies, repeat, none of them have good end scenes. A lot of them have
No,
great endings. The first Friday the 13th movie has one of the best horror movie endings of all time and one of the lamest final scenes. We're doing that again here, in my opinion. One of the best endings and a total garbage final scene.
yeah, the climax just it doesn't work. I think it's fun, but we're getting into once again Dream Warriors territory. It all feels a bit goofy and like whimsical rather than exciting and scary.
Yeah, it's getting away from itself a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting carried
And
away.
like, I mean, I love Dream Warriors, but it is the point in which the Nightmare franchise falls apart for me because once Freddy can be killed by teenagers with dream powers,
Mm.
we're in goofy goof territory.
Yeah, I never wanted anyone to be able to fight Freddy, really. I wanted him to be absolutely unstoppably horrifying.
Yeah.
I don't feel the same about Jason. I like people fighting Jason. I think the franchise takes a fun turn when Tina starts fighting back.
Yeah. I just think the idea of like powers, I always think that like the interesting way that we kill, quote unquote, kill Jason at the end of the various movies. Like I really like the Tommy Jarvis killing Jason stuff.
Yeah.
Or like ending Jason or at least wrapping up that movie. And him, particularly at the end of Jason Lives, rules to me. I think the hanging him with a chain and throwing him to the bottom of the lake is the coolest way to dispatch of Jason.
It's pretty great, yeah.
It's like it's the inverse of the jumping out of the water. It's like dragging him into the water. It's cool. It's just really cool, and I really rate that. But I think like when you bring in like different ways to kill these unkillable monsters, I just sort of, it's about smarts and it's about brains, because you can't beat the brute force of Jason with your 2x4 unless you're Terry Crews.
Right.
So like it's always about like being clever and thinking about the ways to kill him in a different way. Which if you're just like, well, I've got special brain powers, so I can, I can brain him to death. It seems a bit cheap to me in that Dream Warriors way. And like I say, don't get me wrong, I love Dream Warriors. I just think it's the Goonies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much on the same page in that I don't even like Dream Warriors. So like I give it even less rope. Yeah, I think the reason I totally buy the telekinesis side of it is that it is just a break from this one out of like 15 sassy, one of them has the brains to trap or trick Jason. And every movie it's like, well, it's her immediately. She's the one. She's going to trap him, or she's going to find a way to somehow neuter him. And that's fine. It just adds novelty. It adds loads of scope for fun special effects. It adds a new kind of fight, and it's totally unexplored territory in this little universe. It's largely unexplored territory in the horror universe. Like proper good use of telekinetic powers to fight a monster. It's not done very much, and I think
it's underused in this movie that is literally about it.
It is.
So,
yeah. I mean, that's one thing, is they could have had her telekinetic powers be more powerful. Than throwing lamps and couches and stuff like that.
Matchbooks.
Yeah, exactly. But then you would have been just rocketing into more absurdly unbelievable stuff straight away. I think the movie starts at such a pace. It really does give you all the exposition, all the background, everything you need within the first 5 minutes. To then have her like ripping the roofs off houses and stuff would be maybe a step too far. But I'd be all in for it.
Well, like she has this power in the prologue to destroy Pia, kill her dad.
Yeah.
And then like 10 years later or whatever, she can't even move a matchbook.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption here is that she has been institutionalized. We know this. And I think she's been medicated. And I think Kaiser busts her out, stops her taking her meds, and then starts doing his chicanery in her mind box. Yeah,
I just wish that there was a bit more. And maybe because they were planning this new blood to be an ongoing part of the series, that we were going to build Tina's powers into the future. I have not engaged with any sort of Friday the 13th extended universe or even like too much of the behind the scenes stuff.
Sure.
It was never my franchise. Nightmare was always my franchise.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that, like, what their actual plans were. I know that they wanted to do more with Tina. But, I mean, and I think more with Tina would have been better than Jason Takes Manhattan. But
Jason Takes Manhattan is not only my least favorite Friday movie, it is bottom 3 worst movies I've ever seen. It just fails on every single level.
There's if you clip out 5 clips 3 seconds at a time from that movie, you could make it look like the greatest movie of all time.
That's what they did with the trailers.
That moment where Jason's on the subway and he just pushes people out of the way. That's fucking. I I would pay good money for a 90-minute movie of just that. Just Jason pacing up and down the subway, getting in people's faces. Then everyone on the subway being like, well, yeah, it's New York. This is what it's like. It's normal for there to be a horrible, freaky guy on the subway that smells terrible.
Yeah.
He's been under a lake for 10 years.
And also, the ocean.
Yeah. Can we talk about the timeline of these movies also? Because I am very confused.
I'd rather we didn't. It doesn't. I'll save you the trouble. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. I've read a lot about this. We're supposed to be 10 years. Tina's supposed to be like 10 years older than when she kills her dad with the pier. But that doesn't add up. None of it adds up. There's posters in the Manhattan movie that are for movies that are 10 years in the future. There's loads of nods and winks to stuff that's happening in the earlier movies that puts them decades apart. None of it adds up. None of it makes any sense. Not all of them are set on a Friday the 13th either. This one is, but it's a total gibberish timeline. Is there anything about it that trips you up so much it disrupts your viewing of the movie?
Not massively. It's a thing that plays on my mind. I want an internal logic to a series of movies.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you say, maybe I'm in the wrong place for that.
You absolutely are, my friend. You get it. In my opinion, here's how you date the Friday movies: clothing. That's the only way you get. And who the fuck cares? Like, it's 88. It feels later to me. The movie, in my opinion, feels more 90s than it does late 80s. But maybe that's just my own weird perception of time. I think the clothing in this movie dates it quite well, and that's really all I need. Like, I don't fucking care when it is. It's cool that it is.
I've got a point about the clothing of something that really annoys me.
Yeah.
So when Tina first shows up, right, the bitchy girls are like, looks like her mom dressed her.
Yeah.
And then later, one of those bitchy girls is like going off to have sex with like the really preppy guy who is dressed exactly the same as how Tina is dressed in that scene.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about clothing for too long because everyone will stop listening to this podcast. But Russell Bowen, the preppy, whatever the fuck you want to call him character, his sweater game is absolutely next level. He does a shoulder varsity style sweater thing, but then he knots it in this perfect little pouch at the front. Like, he knots the sleeves together so they're on his navel in a perfect knot right at his waistline. It is disgusting. It's the grossest thing in the whole movie.
But also, Nick can absolutely fold a shirt like nobody else. Have you seen how well folded that shirt is when he gives it back to Tina?
It's unbelievable.
Is it your job to fold shirts? Are you like some shirt folding savant? Like, what is this?
A cardboard backed shirt that you take out of the case at one of these like high end retailers. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, the clothing in this movie is fucking fantastic. It elevates the clothing game of the franchise exponentially. People are dressed in the weirdest fucking ways. And I think La Park Lincoln, for the most part, in this movie, is dressed really well. She looks fantastic. Her hair's amazing. She's incredibly beautiful. I had the biggest crush on her when I was a kid. My first Friday crush, for sure. And I actually, here we go, really rate her performance. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think there are any good performances in this, apart from fucking Kane Hodder giving it all
to your boy Kane Hodder.
Always. But like, Nick is giving it some, Tina's giving it some, Terry Kaiser is giving it some, as Dr. Cruz. That's confusing.
It is. It really is.
The mum is absolutely shocking.
Oh.
Everybody else is shocking. It does also do a couple of things that I really love, right?
Go on.
Which is the person that doubts anything's happening immediately gets comeuppance.
Melissa?
So like what? Yeah. So Melissa is like, "Oh, you're full of shit. This is all nonsense," and then opens the door and Jason's there and gets an axe to the face. I love that.
And then thrown over the TV so violently.
Yeah.
Superb. We also lose a really good shot of an axe in her face because of the cuts there. There's a really good shot of that. And they did loads of like a rubber axe in her real face, a real axe in a rubber face. They spent loads of time on it and then it just got completely binned. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
There's also a deleted scene, which is one of my favorite tropes in the genre. And you get some of it in the finished movie, but not an awful lot, which is it's the Linda and Bob scene from the original Halloween
Yeah.
with the weed guy and the less nerdy of the nerdy girls.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my favorite slasher tropes is like the guy gets out of bed just after they've had sex to go off on a little mission for whatever reason.
His little side quest.
Yeah. And then gets murked and then comes back and he's either the killer in a big sheet or he's the severed head or whatever. I fucking love that.
That scene, that cut scene is really scary in my opinion. He gives her the torch, which, you know, so many problems with the shit that they cut out in scenes like this where the gore is foundational to the build. Like the build up really leads to the payoff. Like we get so much nonsense in that scene. It doesn't make any sense. My favorite part is that he crawls out of bed to get these torches and he says it's dark, and it's not. It's really bright in there.
It's the brightest scene in the whole movie.
Exactly. It's so dumb. But he gives her this torch and she's like shining it around all baked and whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. And then when you watch like you said, the original kill, she shines the torch and sees his fucking severed head in the doorway. And then she shines it up and sees Jason's face in torchlight and moonlight. And then there's a lightning clap and it looks incredible. And they cut it all out. It's absolutely dreadful. So what we're left with is this like stupid torch banter for no reason. And
there's like nothing ever pays off.
Yeah. So dumb.
Yeah.
What else did you like? Because that's an alarmingly short list.
I really enjoy the bit where Jason gets home alone through the stairs.
Yeah, so good. It makes him seem so indomitably heavy and like such a mass that he just crashes through those wooden stairs.
I really enjoy when Jason gets knocked over and he just sort of planks over.
Yeah.
It always feels like there's no personality. I mean, obviously he's a personality-free killer who just loves to use different implements to kill people, including a weed whacker. We'll get to that.
Yep.
But like when he gets knocked over, particularly when it's Kane Hodder, I think he just sort of stacks. He never puts his arms out to try and stop him. He's just like, I'm going. I'll see you later.
Yep.
And I love that because obviously he gets home alone through the stairs and then he gets to burst out of the under the stairs cupboard, which I think is hilarious and great.
It's really good, isn't it? Just exploding balsa wood cupboard. Like I'm going to give Kane Hodder a lot of credit here because he does so much in this film that I absolutely love. Like you said, when he falls face first into that puddle, it's great. You just get that real feeling of mass and size and substance. And I think that's really important for this Jason because he just like battles through so much abuse. He does some great head movement. I know everyone always gives Kane Hodder all this insane credit for like moving his eye or whatever, but I really think he changes what we think of as Jason from now on in this film with those weird movements. He also punches through a guy's sternum from the back, which is the first like incredible show of Jason's strength in the series. And again, a lot of it's cut, but you do get to see him just fucking punch his fist through a man's body, which is superb.
Yeah, he also can telekinetically power a weed whacker.
Why do you say that?
Because like, we talked about this a little bit in Hatchet, in our Hatchet review, but just like the idea that he's got a really long extension cord.
It's a petrol thing. It's a petrol weed whacker.
Is it?
Of course it is. Come on, Jamie.
Did they have petrol weed whackers? I'm not.
Absolutely. Before they had electric anything, they had petrol everything. You can't picture Jason gassing up his weed whacker and like, despite dying when he was a child, knowing how to start it up and what it's for and how to use it. I buy it.
Yeah. We need a little scene of Dr. Loomis being like, I wonder who taught Jason how to use a weed whacker.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I love that shit. One of the most divisive kills in this movie is when he takes the party horn and just jams it into that girl's eye and it goes, when it goes in. What did you think of that?
I mean, I love that. That's great. The Ben kill and then that kill is like a little 1-2 punch of like brutality and then goofiness.
Yeah, crushing his head. It's very cool. Yeah.
So I really dig that. I love the uncut version of the sleeping bag kill. The concept of the sleeping bag kill generally.
Yeah.
The idea, I wish it was gorier in the film and in the uncut version. I wish that when the person's head or when they roll out of the sleeping bag, I wish they were more fucked up.
Yeah. Agreed.
But there's something so, I don't know, visceral and violent just about taking a bag of someone and smashing it against the tree.
That is so brutal. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it hits on so many levels. First of all, when I first started going on tour, my dad's advice to me was, "Don't sleep in a sleeping bag because someone might beat you to death."
I think it's good
But
advice.
really good advice. Second, don't sleep in the van because someone might set it on fire.
I mean, people can set anything on fire, right?
Yeah, but like imagine being in a sleeping bag being beaten to death and someone sets the van on fire. That was my worst nightmare. So this kill had a lot of like punch power for me. Like it really hits. That is a horrifying way to die.
Yeah.
And the central debate here is even Kane Hodder thinks the edited version is better, the one whack. I'm way more on the side of as many whacks as you can get away with.
Yeah, 40 whacks forever. I
Yeah.
think, like, I don't believe that you die after one whack. Unless it hits perfectly, which you can never see because they're inside a sleeping bag.
Yeah. I mean, it is an
I,
incredibly hard whack. I do buy that she dies after one whack, but I preferred six. Much preferred six.
yeah, I think even if you're Jason and you can imperceptibly know when someone's dead, and so you're happy to move on to the next person,
Yeah.
like I would just, why would you just whack them one time? I don't buy it. Don't
I'd
get it.
keep going until it was just a fucking sack of cottage cheese.
Literally, red cottage cheese.
Which, interestingly, they used for the effect when he crushed Ben's head. It's cottage
Mm,
cheese.
there you go.
Very clever. I like the callback in Jason X to the sleeping bag scene. I think that's great. They obviously knew the fans hated that got cut down from 6 to 1 and redid it in all its glory. But I agree. I think the grisly, the Paramount footage, whatever the deleted scenes, the cut gore, you do see the end of the sleeping bag just like bright red with blood, and it's all sloppy,
Yeah.
and the sound effects are great. I think that's cool. But yeah, a real shame again, just not to see that gore lived out in full six whack glory.
But like I say, I even think the uncut version
Yeah.
could be more violent in terms of like what you see. I mean, you see that shot in the cut version as well, but like I want them to be more fucked up. It's just like the head is a bit bashed in. Like I want literal like shards of skull. Like, do you know
Yeah.
like when we see what movie is it where they're just like pummeling someone's head with a hammer?
Well, there's loads of good hammer mash brain movies, but I wanted more Hatchet style gore in this. It's Beekler.
Yeah.
It's your boy
Yeah.
Beeks. If we could just have her completely mangled by this, that would be great. But we don't get that. We get
don't.
something different. I like, in terms of pacing, I like that it's whack done next, but it's not my ideal scenario.
Well, so one of my big issues is the pacing in this movie is pretty bad. And I think, like I said at the top, I think that is tied to the fact that all the punches are pulled by the death scenes. So it's not punctuated as strongly by big moments as you want it to be, because it's just like, well, Jason killed someone, but like we don't see anything really interesting happen. It's just like Jason's coming. Oh, he's killed someone. Okay, now we're back to people talking.
Yeah.
We're here for the gore. That's what Friday the 13th is all about, is the really violent kills. We're not in Freddy, we're not in Michael, we're not in Candyman. Like there's nothing like clever about the way that Jason kills people. It's just about pain and causing the maximum amount of pain in the minimum amount of time. And so when none of that lands, it really sucks the air out of the movie, I think.
It does, and it speaks to the criminality of this level of censorship. It's the death of art. It fucks the entire movie up. Like like you say, what more grievous harm can you do to a film than fuck up its pacing? Like that's such a terrible thing to do to somebody's. It is art. I'm sorry, I don't care if it's trash entertainment. It's somebody's work, and you've just completely ruined it because you're a fucking Nazi. Yeah, I think weirdly, and this might sound ridiculous, but the stuff that I love about Friday movies isn't all about the Jason kills. Like, I actually really like the sense of atmosphere and the place and the story and the mythology, and I get really sucked in by Crystal Lake generally as a place. So when that's amplified in some way, like the woodland shots in this movie are great. Everything's lightning lit, everything's kind of autumnal. It feels very much like Crystal Lake, but it's a different part of Crystal Lake, which I love. It's not the camp. you forget that Crystal Lake is this massive body of water, and there's all these houses all the way around it. It's probably like multiple towns back onto Crystal Lake. So we get to see a little bit of the sort of extended universe in this movie, which is something I love. We also get lots of really clever shots of Jason being part of the scenery. Like there's a shot in the living room where he's standing in the corner, and I can't remember who it is, but there's like this elevated corner shot looking down. Someone walks through the room, there's a flash of light, and you just see Jason for a second in the corner, just backed into the corner. And that tells you a lot about how he moves, how he stalks, what he does. It's that shark side of him. And there's quite a lot of that in this movie that I like, as well as the hilarious, comically goofy, crazy rubber face stuff, which I fucking 100% back.
Well, so, I mean, there is some cool sort of Jason is the scenery stuff, but there's also some really dumb editing physics. So, like, for example, when the girl is skinny dipping and he kills the preppy guy.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's just in the water next to her.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
The Jaws kill is dismissible at best. Like, it's a cut for cut underneath coming up through the water. Jaws. Even the music even does a Jaws thing. Yeah, kind of a weak kill. Again, censored, who cares? But I think that brings me on to an interesting point about the music in this movie. What did you think?
So I think, obviously, this is just like basically picking and choosing all of the best bits of the previous scores.
Right.
And I think it's the best music for that.
I totally agree. I find Manfredini's scores really stabby and jarring and overused, like way too much high strings hammering at you the whole time. I know that's like fucking blasphemy. The opening credits is a Terminator like theme, basically. You get loads of this great 80s synth stuff happening. It's really eerie. It has its own little musical motif as well as the Kiki Mama stuff, and it's fucking everything combined together. It's really well placed. Is that the word? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's, like I say, the fact that you can dip in and pick all the best bits of the Manfredini stuff, tack on your own stuff. Like, I think it really works. I think it's like, it's a greatest hits.
Yeah, it's definitely the best score in my opinion. I fucking love it. There's just so much happening in this movie that I think people miss, and I'm glad we're throwing some light on these hidden cracks. Is there anything that you think is, like, as somebody who obviously doesn't really like the movie very much, is there anything you think is fucking unforgivable in this film? I know we've hit on a lot.
I think the entire movie is kind of unforgivable. Like, I just don't think there's enough weight to the stuff that happens.
Right.
And like I've said, I think there's too much kids, not enough Jason, and that's all because of the cuts.
Yeah.
So I think the characters, there's too much time for them to be shit. And you don't really want them to die, but you don't not want them to die. You just sort of don't care about any of the characters apart from Tina.
That's what a lot of people say is like the death knell of a slasher movie, right? If you don't care about the victims enough to want them to die, even.
Yeah. That's it. Like, with Friday the 13th movies, especially Friday the 13th movies, you either love the characters and want them to live, or you hate the characters and want them to die. And in this one, they're just sort of there. And I don't care about any of them, because the only ones that are given any characterization, because it's just so weak, it's so thin. And maybe your bitchy Melissa girl.
Yeah, Melissa.
Like, it's satisfying when she opens the door and Jason is there. And I've talked about it before. I want people to realize that they're wrong before they die, when they're wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Like, I whinged about Living Dead at Manchester Morgue and the ending of that.
Right.
So I won't go into that again. But, like, it's much more satisfying when people get instant karma, Jason-shaped karma.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree to an extent. I think it's not the best group of teens of the Friday movies. But what I think it does well is you get at least two characters that you connect with enough to care about. I think Melissa is great. I think she does her job so well. She's so fucking unlikable. She's such a spoiled, rich bitch. And it is so immensely satisfying when you see her manipulate your favorite guy, humiliate him. You see her, fuck with your protagonist, who by this point you're supposed to really like. She's getting in the way of love at every opportunity, and then she gets it big time. I think we like Eddie enough by this point that it's kind of a bummer when he dies. I think Judy's
I don't
cool.
think I care. I don't think I care enough about him whether he lives or dies. I like him as a vibe and as a character and as like a a sci-fi nerd that's plonked in this middle of this cool party with all these cool people.
Yeah.
Like the friend group it feels like camp because it's like these people would never hang out outside of this.
Yeah.
And it isn't camp. It's meant to be a birthday party for a group of friends.
For a guy who never shows up.
Yeah. And no
I love
one's
that.
very rarely is anyone like, hey, where's Michael? They
Yeah.
say it maybe twice, and they don't care about him.
Not massively, no.
So
Michael's
like,
cool though. We like Michael, right?
I mean, he gets to die early doors.
He has a really the way he dies is bad enough, but then he just gets fucking stuffed in a tree for people to find later. I think he's like really unnerving the way he's just fucking rammed in there.
Yeah, I just don't buy this group of teens. I think it would make more sense if it was a camp or if it was a hospital or if it was a whatever. Like, I don't believe that these people are friends.
Well, yeah, they're kind of not, and that is a little bit weird. But again, I think we've all experienced those parties where two friendship groups come together, two or more, plus some family members, and it fucking sucks. And someone's doing their best to get the vibe going, and someone's a complete bummer, and someone's just like an absolutely impossible to navigate personality. I like that friction. I don't think it has to be a perfect friendship group for us to root for them, but I think there is a bit of a lack of chemistry. And apparently a lot of that is down to the fact that these guys were fucking wasted the whole way through this movie. They were partying like lunatics, and they didn't get along particularly well. Apparently Lar Park Lincoln was kind of hard to work with and drove a bit of a wedge between the kids who are all 40. But yeah, definitely not the best chemistry or the teams that you want to root for. But I think there's just enough presence there for you to care that people are dying at least, which isn't exactly high praise.
No, like I said, I just don't really care. But it's hard to care because it's like, I don't care about these kids dying, and then them dying is muted and a bit sad.
Yeah.
So like, it's a fail on a fail. It's a hat on a hat.
Yeah, it's a movie sabotaged, which sucks. Yeah. I think some of the most interesting stuff in the movie is nothing to do with the kids. It feels to me like Buechler was making a telekinesis, psychological / parapsychological, paranormal thriller using Jason as a vehicle for that. And then they had to have like a teen storyline running alongside it, and he just kind of did his best. The writing in this movie is abysmal, really. Like, a lot of the dialogue is absolute garbage. There's some hilarious lines. There's a bit where Lar Park Lincoln actually says, with my luck, you're probably going to turn out to be another delusion. It's the worst fucking line.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's so
bad,
bad.
isn't it?
But then the stoner guy pulls it back with the line, you know what I like about you? You hardly sweat at all. You hardly sweat. Fucking hell, it makes no sense. Yeah, silly. Fuck me, dude. What else is there to say? Do you rate, when the final confrontation starts happening, when Tina starts facing up to Jason, do you rate what happens in that whole end fight sequence, or is it
like,
just, are you done by that point?
I think it's goofy in a way that doesn't really pay off,
right?
Or doesn't really. It's not set up. I mean, we see her get to grips with her powers, but we don't understand why, and we know that it's brought on by how she's feeling. Like, it's all sort of teased out, and it makes sense technically because they've laid they've dropped these bits of exposition throughout it. But like, I don't really believe that we've gone on this journey with Tina to understand that she can now control her powers
right
in a way to comfortably kill Jason.
Yeah, it would be nice if there was just one conversation where she says, I've always been able to control my powers. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
she's trying not to because they're destructive, or she's been medicated out of it or whatever. Like, those are the connective tissue that we put together as an audience. But that's one piece of exposition I would have liked, just for Cruz to be like, I know she can do it, I've seen it, or whatever, like something like that.
Or even just like because we know that she can actually control it by the scene where she like crushes his head, which as we've said is my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
But like, I wish there was just a bit before that where she, or even after that, where she's like, I figured it out. I now know what to do.
We get that musically, which again is not much of a consolation. I feel like I'm fighting a very, very weak fight here. But the music tells us she's figured it out. She launches that couch. She throws the plant pot with the severed head in it, which is hilarious.
Very good.
There's a great scene in this end sequence when Jason bursts through the bay window into the living room, and he's just standing there with the birthday balloons just blowing around next to his head. And again, he's lit in that really like kind of crisp blue, but it's all drippy water everywhere. And then you get these colorful balloons. It just looks fucking great. I mean, I rate this whole end confrontation from start to finish. For me, there's nothing about it that sucks. From the moment that he's electrocuted, my favorite electricity effect at play, thin blue lines just kind of like writhing around him, electrocuting him, all the way up until the house exploding, I think is pretty much gold. Do you know about this house explosion? What happened with that?
No, go on, tell me.
So when you see the house explode, I think for anyone watching it, you think, fucking hell, that's a really big explosion. Like it's a massive explosion, right? The whole house goes in one hit. So they built the house to explode. It's a set. But they overloaded the explosives in this house to the point where when it blew up, everyone was in like boats around the water filming or directing, or like Beekler was in a boat, and all the boats flipped over. They lost a load of cameras, lenses exploded, like foils melted. It was such an enormous explosion. It sent people fucking flying. People got hurt just because they rigged it to blow way too hard. They got really carried away.
I mean, it is a big explosion for no
Yeah.
good reason. I was like trying to justify it in my head. I was like, well, I guess there's a gas main. Like,
Yeah.
it kind of like, sure.
You
I'm
just
like an
nailed it,
absolute
bud.
pragmatist. Like,
Yeah, I mean the explosion is such a showstopper for me. I don't give a fuck why the house explodes. I think telekinesis plus gas maybe, but it's the biggest fucking. It was also the longest controlled burn in a scene in Hollywood history up until that point, because Kane Hodder as Jason catches fire in the scene, and then the whole room goes up. It's the longest one. But what a great anecdote! Like they just fucked up and made the house blow up too hard because everyone was fucking wasted. They shot this movie in 5 months. Like wrote and shot it in 5 months.
I love the guy on fire stuff in a movie. I think we've really moved away from that as a piece of sort of narrative or as a special effect, and I don't know why. I think it's always good. Like a guy on fire is always good.
When have we in this podcast series had one guy on fire not be fantastic?
Absolutely. Like why would it's always a good effect, even if you can see the guys basically in a beekeeper outfit, like underneath the fire. Like it doesn't matter. Like guy on fire is great.
Agreed. And you're introducing fire, which is always great, but it always leads to an explosion or a great dousing of some kind. There's a shot in this at the end where the house is, smoldering, and you get, our two main characters on the dock, and they're lit by all the like billowing flame and reflections on the water and stuff. It just looks really beautiful.
Yeah.
But leading up to that, we get a great fight, in my opinion. She's firing nails into Jason's face. Like you said, she's smashing him in the face with every object she can find, sending him flying through the stairs. We get to see Jason laying on the floor, then opening one eye. Just get all this really cool stuff, and we get the biggest, longest, sustained reveal of Jason's face. Oh, we get to see him lynched again, which is great. What do you think about the Jason face in this movie?
Well, like I say, I think he looks like a madball, but I really love it. I think it's like, I don't want, especially when we're in movie 7, like I don't want like cool, realistic effects. I want him to look the most fucked up a person can look.
Yeah.
Like everything that he's been through to this point, and obviously he starts with a deformity.
Yep.
So like he's always going to be the most fucked up. I feel like, do you know like when they rebuild a skull to try and figure out what the person looks like?
Yeah.
I feel like if they rebuilt his face from how it looks in this, he would probably just look like a normal dude.
Yeah, I think I hear where you're coming from there. Yeah,
he doesn't have the big, insane forehead, like bulbous head thing that he has when he pops out of the water at the end of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love the hockey masks generally. I think we talked about this before.
Yeah,
like because you can't trademark or copyright a hockey mask, so like there's a million hockey mask knockoffs out there.
Yeah,
and I've always been burlap sack Jason. Has always been my fave.
I do love Baghead Jason a lot.
Yeah. No mask is perfect for me, especially when it looks, and I think you said that this film sort of feels 90s. I think it's the way that Jason looks that makes it feel really 90s.
Yeah.
I think those effects are way ahead of their time.
Agreed.
In terms of the way that they look, they have a really sort of 90s vibe to them. And like we would see loads more effects that look like that in the 90s.
And we'd see it in stuff now, like Stranger Things. You know, they're using effects that look like Friday the 13th Part 7. I just think I really think it's a leap ahead in terms of, special effects work. It's really ahead of its time in a really good way. And when he bursts out of his mask, I just see that as kind of a symbolic step for the franchise. They never follow up on, really. It's Jason exploding out of, his old limited previous self into something new, which is what this movie does for me from start to finish. And I think it's a great moment because it's really fucking unnerving. Like, some people laugh hysterically at that moment. Some people recoil in terror. Some people just, it's like a feast for the eyes. There's so much going on in that face. Such a beautiful piece of special effects work. It's my favorite moment. I would say, like, my favorite, like, big hit moment in that movie for several movies.
No, I think it works. I really do think it works, and I think it's cool. It's unfulfilled. It leaves.
Yeah.
It's not picked up. It's not.
Nope.
People are
Jason just has his mask in the next movie, and he also has like clothing that's intact. Like, he just looks fucking ridiculous, but it's not. There's no continuity. The continuity kind of ends here. I love that the mask in this is recast from the original mask and then put through loads of like battering and effects to make it look the way it looks now. That's a real nod of respect to the earlier movies, I think, and that's another Beeklerism to the max. But yeah, you're right, it just doesn't fucking go anywhere from here. They just completely, drill it into the ground. I think this is the last Friday the 13th movie until X.
Yeah, I mean, what's after this? Goes to Hell and Manhattan.
Manhattan then Goes to Hell, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like Goes to Hell. I like Jason Goes to Hell as a concept.
I know you do, yeah. You're a hellhead.
I am a hellhead.
See, this is why I thought you would like 7 more, because your defense of Hell has always been that it does something radically different and new and has bags of imagination. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. It's laying the groundwork for stuff that never really comes true.
Yeah, no, and I do like all of that stuff in this. I like the ideas. I don't think it ever really pays off. And I think maybe I watched Jason Goes to Hell more when I was a teenager, and so I'm predisposed to defend that way more than I am to this one.
Yeah,
which is like, once again, I can't be objective about anything because
no, I don't want you to be
nostalgia man forever.
I don't want you to be objective on my birthday. I'm not going to objectify you on my birthday. What I also like about this movie is it's probably my favorite, but it's not the best by a mile. I mean,
no.
A lot of people put it oh, fuck me, I don't know, probably the original.
2.
Ooh, 2 is great.
2 or 4 for me.
Yeah, probably 4. 4 has the most rewatch value for me. This one I've watched the most. 1 and 2 I love.
Well, that doesn't make any sense, Sam.
Why?
4 has the most rewatch value, but this one I've watched the most.
Yeah, because this is super comforting, nothingy viewing a lot of the time for me. But it's what I will put on in the background at the start of Halloween, for example. But I will sit down and watch 4 properly because I think it's a genuinely good film.
Yeah, fair enough.
I like them both, maybe not equally, but very close. I would struggle to rank them one above the other, really. Do you notice the donuts in this movie?
I did notice the donuts, and I was thinking, Sam must love the donuts.
God, they look incredible, and nobody touches them. Nobody eats a single donut this whole movie. They're still there at the very end, and they blow up in the house. It's such a waste.
Every time I think about telekinesis, by the way, there is a Immortal Technique rhyme, like couplet, that I think about. He's a rapper.
Okay.
And it is, the line goes, "Don't you fucking talk about telekinesis. N-word, please. Moving shit with your mind. Try moving your moms out of the projects with your rhymes."
Oh my God. Fucking hell.
Isn't that great? Isn't that the perfect little couplet? I love it.
That goes against everything you believe in, Jamie. Telekinesis above all else.
I believe in, moving my mum out of the projects with my rhymes.
Yeah, but what if you could do it with telekinesis? What if you could physically lift her up and move her out? That would be better.
Yeah, well, my mum doesn't live in the projects. It might surprise you to know.
And you're not telekinetic, so...
No.
Right. What do you want to do here?
Why don't we take a break
someday? Yeah. Okay.
Why don't we take a break? We'll come back and we'll give it our wrap up special.
All right,
we'll wrap it up like one of your presents.
Come on, man. Does that thing even work? No, there's nothing out there. It's just dead air.
Okay, Sam, we're back.
All right, we're back. Here we are.
It's been your birthday. How's your birthday been?
It's been great. What more can you ask for? I've got donuts. I've got Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. I've got my good buddy, Jamie Carruthers, and I'm just hanging out, having the time of my life.
I think for your birthday, what people should do is review and give the podcast 5 stars.
I would appreciate the gift of some Instagram follows and, well, just social media follows in general. And if you really want to go the whole hog, if you really want to go full Jason, want to go Jason X on our asses, review the podcast. For my birthday, give me some critique.
I think that would be a wonderful present for you.
Be a huge treat.
All right, Sam, wrap it up for me. Tell me what you think. Tell me. I mean, we know what you think, but
I won't shut the fuck up about it. Here's what I think. I love this film. It's a monster movie. It's a creech feech, and it has Jason in it. It's centered around the idea of this telekinetic girl fighting Jason. She's got a psycho doctor, a crazy mum, and a bunch of idiot teens at a party just smoking weed and banging. I really do not understand what's not to like about this movie. It has an exploding house. It has hurtling objects flying across rooms and crashing into people. It has scintillating dialogue, such as "Come and get me, you big hunk of a man." It has some of the best kills in the franchise. It survived a brutal attack of horribly cynical censorship, and it comes out swinging. It's got an incredible soundtrack.
okay.
It hits on every level for me. I absolutely love this much maligned, underappreciated little masterpiece.
I understand that it's doing some cool things.
Oh yeah.
And it really tries, but I think it doesn't come out swinging. I think it is knocked out by the censorship. I think there are some interesting directorial choices. The music's great. The ideas are strong, but it all falls apart in the execution for me. This movie was executed by the censors. There you go.
Yes,
How's that?
It was. We know that, and I think it asks enough of our imagination for us to make the movie something magical. And that's what happens for me when I watch it. And I know that doesn't happen for everyone, and that's why it's really, really low down everyone's Friday the 13th lists.
Yeah.
But it's really beautifully directed, I think. It's very, very cleverly made. The use of darkness, like you said, the color work is fantastic. You know, there's so much going on with like these creepy kind of teals and greens and blues, and it just, I don't know. There's so much going on here that works. We juxtapose Jason with some party balloons. Like, what more do you want here? Like, it's a romp and a half. Yeah, it fucks up a lot, but don't we all? I think it's the humanity of it that makes it work. Rising above the censors. It's a tale of triumph in many ways, Jamie.
I think, is this what I sound like every other week?
Pretty much. Listen, we've all got a movie that we know sucks that we'll defend because it means something special to us. And I really love Tina's character. I like the story. I think it's such a wild swing for the fences in terms of like, how do you bust a really stale series of movies out of a funk? Telekinesis straight away. There's enough.
I find that that's a bit cheap.
Why? Why is that cheap?
I feel like, did I read that this was meant to be Freddy versus Jason?
Originally, yeah, this is when that's misleading. I think people get fucked up by this. Like, this was when Freddy versus Jason was supposed to happen.
Yeah, and so they couldn't figure out the Freddy stuff, so they were like, let's get an off-brand Carrie.
Again, I just don't think it's fair. Like, Carrie is such a great character. Carrie is like maybe not a victim. Carrie is somebody who's been abused her whole life, you know, by her mother, by her peers. She's religiously abused. And her story is so different to Tina's. You know, yes, they're both telekinetic. The comparison is kind of sloppy, and I think people just do the like Carrie versus to the Terminator thing. And yeah, sure, but I think Tina is a very strong telekinetic character of her own ilk, and I think it kind of reduces Carrie to drag her into this mess. To be honest.
I think like they wanted a Carrie-like character. They wanted something that they could be like, this feels like it's been transported from another different horror franchise. Maybe Carrie is really a franchise. There are 2 Carrie movies and then remakes, and we don't talk about the Rage Carrie 2.
No. And by
So
this point in 88, not a huge body of work around Carrie. And again, Carrie's thing is that she's bullied and she's not, quote unquote, not attractive. And, I think Tina is a completely different beast.
but I think they want you to think about Carrie when they're
Yeah, maybe.
like it's not an accident that she's telekinetic.
Well, no,
Like,
it's
they could've-
very deliberate.
They could have had Sharp Hand Joe or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Fucking Sharp Hand Joe.
yeah, or
A guy called Joe with sharp hands.
yeah,
That's not cheap.
like they could have had, if they wanted to knock off a different horror thing, they could have had like Nail Face, like whatever. But
Yeah.
they chose Carrie and not Sharp Hand Joe because they wanted to keep Freddy versus Jason in their back pocket for a future time.
Yeah, sure.
And like, you can knock off Carrie, or you can reference Carrie subtly without, because telekinesis is just telekinesis.
Yeah.
And there are a million telekinesis movies. There's Carrie, there's The Fury, there's Scanners, there's whatever.
Yeah.
But like teen girl telekinetic, that is your brain always goes to Carrie.
But that's where it ends for me. I don't see any other similarities, to be honest. They're both teenage girls with telekinesis. If it was a guy, would we be getting the Carrie comparisons?
But like, we don't know what's happened in the intervening years for Tina.
Carrie?
Right?
For Tina?
Yeah.
You mean after the events of The New Blood?
No. So after the events of the killing at the
Right.
beginning and before the events of A New Blood,
Sure.
we don't know. Obviously, we know that she's not abused by her mum. Well, we
No.
hope.
Well, we know she's been institutionalized.
Yeah, but not necessarily for the whole time.
No.
So she could have been up to some Carrie prom antics in that time.
She could have been carrying on. I'd watch that. I'd watch The New Blood prequel. Just
Oof.
blood. Oh, come on. Tina's life leading up to the events at Crystal Lake. That'd be fucking sick.
Would it? Or
Yeah,
would
I'd
it
love
be?
It would be Carrie.
Yeah.
I think,
The only way it's interesting is if it's Carrie.
yeah. I mean, what we didn't talk about is how fucking scary Tina is as a child in those opening sequences. That haircut, she's terrifying. Iconic horror kid, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean,
I really
people-
rate the idea of like, oh, my parents are fighting. I'm going to get in a boat and I'm going to ride out to the middle of the fucking lake.
Yeah, and kill my dad.
I mean, killing your dad is that's the horror film thing. But like the idea that you're like, I'm what, 10,
Yeah,
8? Like she's going to be what, 16 when they're at the party.
I guess. We're going to get in this boat with an outboard motor.
Literally, and just like, I know how to use the outboard motor. I'm going to motor myself to the middle of the lake.
To a safe
And,
distance.
like, yeah, it's just it's a stupid thing to do.
It's great,
and
though.
it's-
It looks brilliant.
Yeah, and it's perfect horror situation, especially when we know that Jason loves to jump out of the water.
Yeah,
And so we're
exactly.
constantly thinking about, when's Jason going to jump out?
Yeah.
Because we know that he's down there. We've had that shot.
But I also love that he's down there when she's a kid as well
Yeah.
as when she comes back as an adult. What's Jason
Yeah.
done in the years in between? Fucking sat on the bottom of Crystal Lake, chained to a rock.
Yeah.
So good. I love that.
I think one thing that I don't like about this film, among many other things that I don't like about this
One
film,
thing.
is that we don't get a Jason stinger at the end. I know that there's one that they cut out,
Yeah.
and I love that. I think I would have edited it differently, but like the guy's fishing and he's hooked a thing and you're meant to think it's Jason,
Yeah.
and then he pulls out a big fucking catfish or whatever it is, and then
And
Jason
then,
5 minutes later jumps out. If he jumps out at that exact point when you realize
Yeah.
it's a fish, that's the perfect fake out, I think.
yeah.
But
that's quite cool.
I really miss like a stinger. I want a stinger.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it in this movie just because we already get dad jumping out and that's bad enough.
Yeah.
I've always had this cool image in my mind of, because I love Jason rising out of the lake. It's Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's everything, everything I love. But I love the idea of like him in the background in the distance while something else is happening, just like lumbering up out of the lake, like walking out into the woods. I always thought that would be a really cool image.
Yeah, I think like the stinger could just be him opening his eyes or something. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be another guy jumping out of the lake for the 5th time in this movie or whatever. Like it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah, another big slow motion, like, whoa. I mean, you got to imagine as well, the experience of watching this in the cinema must have been fantastic. Like, I think it would have been amazing. But then even just watching it on VHS, like the idea of that last stinger is actually pretty cool. You know, some kind of like flash of Jason with that cool the musical motif in this movie is so memorable and beautiful and scary. It's a real classic piece of horror movie scoring for me. And to have like a final stinger with that little thing coming in, that is, in my opinion, pumping new blood into the franchise, because it's a whole new feel, it's a whole new atmosphere. It's leaning into loads of these classic horror influences and reference points, but it's doing something fun and new and creative. Yeah, all right, I'm with you. Maybe I would like to see a stinger ending.
Like I say, it doesn't have to be Jason jumping out of the lake again.
Yeah,
It could be anything. And
yeah,
I just sort of don't like they're Tina and Nick are in the back of the ambulance or whatever.
yeah,
And Nick's like, "What about Jason?" And she's like, "Don't worry, I took care of it." Like that's the perfect setup for a stinger. Like
yeah.
she didn't take care of it because he comes back. We know that he's coming back. He's Jason. So like
Yeah.
the idea that isn't punctuated by a stinger is,
It's a sappy ending.
here's my stinger.
Go on.
Perfect. It's
Go on.
nonsense, but I love it. So they're in the back of the ambulance. Nick wakes up and is like, "Oh no, what about Jason?" And she's like, "Don't worry, I took care of it." Cut to the guy driving the ambulance, and it's Jason.
Yes.
And he just drives them into the lake. How about that?
It's no dumber than the dad coming up from the bottom of the fucking lake to save the day. I buy it.
He's got a little hat on. He's got a little ambulance driver hat
Oh,
on.
it's a little outfit. Yeah, then we're going to a whole new place with the
Yeah.
with the next movie. We swerve Manhattan completely. We have a fucking great time back at Crystal Lake in the next movie.
Yeah.
I would just like, realistically, you could have something there like, what happened to Jay? Oh, I took care of him, and then like one of the characters' severed heads like smashes through the ambulance window and lands in her lap, and she screams, and that's the end. Like something like that could have worked.
Yeah.
They obviously decided not to. Maybe they just needed Tina to win emphatically, and they just pulled the punch a little bit and flubbed the ending.
Well, I think Tina winning is why we don't get more Tina, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who's the survivor of 2 who ends up beheaded in a fridge or whatever. Like, people do survive and then get killed in Friday movies, but I like that we don't get more Tina. I don't know why we don't. I assume Friday the 13th logic, but I would watch the spin-off or the prequel.
Yeah. For me, if Tina thinks that Jason is dead, Tina goes away
Yeah.
from Crystal Lake and never goes back there. And Jason doesn't know how to find her. He's not got fucking sat nav.
Yeah, right.
So like that's why we don't get more Tina. Whereas if we do get the stinger, the head comes in, or he's taking her off and driving her into the lake, like that makes sense. That gives us a reason to bring her back.
Yeah. The
Because-
endless
yeah.
Friday ending would be great, where it's Jason driving the ambulance, drive her into Crystal Lake. She wakes up screaming in the hospital. Then a severed head flies through the window and lands in her lap. And she runs off screaming. Just the endless layers of dreaming. Fucking absolute
What about
bullshit.
Jason's driving her into the lake? She wakes up screaming, but she's in the car on the way to Crystal Lake, and the movie just loops.
Oh my God. Groundhog Day 7, The New Blood. Oh my God. Yeah. Listen, but that is seriously why I love this movie so much, is that it's such a fun little world to be in for the duration that the movie's happening. You're at Crystal Lake, but not the Crystal Lake that you know. Jason's going down, but not the way you expect. It's a monster movie. It does all of the stuff that I love for a monster movie, and it's tied in with one of my favorite, really dumb, really stupid franchises. I actually really love Dr. Kaiser. I love loads of characters in this. They stick with me, and I just think it sits higher up on my list than maybe a lot of people's, because it feels like a more complete movie in terms of the look, the music, the story, the characters. It clicks for me in ways that it doesn't for a lot of people, I think. And Beekler, come on, it's Beaky Boy.
Go on. So what's your score?
I'm gonna give Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, 7 birthday balloons out of 7.
That is bold.
That is preposterous. I can't give it anything lower after everything I've said about it. And that's I'm not saying it's good, I'm just saying I love it.
Yeah, I think it takes a big swing of a sleeping bag, but it misses the tree more than it hits. So I would give it 4 swings out of 10.
Ouch. Happy birthday to me. 4 out of 10. Fuck me. That's your lowest rating yet.
Yeah, it is.
By a mile.
It's not a very good film, I think, and I don't have the relationship with it like I do with all the other shit films that we talk about that I love and that everybody else hates. So,
oh, you've rated this lower than Book of Shadows.
I think I didn't. I don't think I did. I think it's about on par with Book of Shadows.
Wowie ouchies. Yeah, I guess. Fine. I will stay away from monster movies in future.
No.
I'll stay away from fun movies with silly dialogue and sexy characters and, you know, great directors who are special effects geniuses. And, you know, I'll stay away from all that. Don't worry.
Everything that you said, I ultimately agree with. I just don't think. I think similar to the Borderlands for you, there are good ideas and there are things that are executed really well. But for the most part, the way that this movie hangs together, it's kind of boring to watch.
Do you think you would love it more if it was the intended movie, like the gore was all in?
I mean, it's hard to know. It would punctuate the film better in a way that makes me less bored. I think, like I say, the way that the boring stuff happens between the kills and the kills don't elevate it because there's not enough there for me.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the reason that this film gets a low rating is because the actual film is boring. But the ideas are there. There is some cool stuff. I really do rate the Jason face, Madball.
And that's the end.
And that's it. That's everything I got to say about Friday the 13th, Part 7. Jason goes back to Crystal Lake again for another bit.
He doesn't go back. He never left. It's been lovely taking a little stroll around Crystal Lake with you, Jamie, on my birthday. Thanks for coming. Even though that's what birthdays are all about, right? Forcing people to do things they don't want to do for your gratification.
I wanted to do it and I was happy to do it. And I enjoyed as much of it as possible.
And you're glad it's over.
Happy birthday, Sam.
Thanks, Jamie.